Welcome to every beta tester on the first version of Stitching.ai. Thank you all for joining us and welcome to the first version of Stitching. This first version includes only the builder environment, which is going to be the foundation to be able to build your stitches and to generate automatically your prompt chains to automate a task. Very soon we're going to include the running environment, which is going to allow you both to save your stitches, which is quite useful, and also to run your stitches every time that you need them. Before we go into the text to stitch, let's just check out the live chats that we have. Here you can find ways to report a bug, to chat with us, or also to ask for us to build you a stitch. Also, you're going to be able to find product tours about these are text guides on stitching and how to use it. And you can find also general questions about stitching. Soon we're going to also include task input examples so that you know and have a reference on what to write in this text to stitch bar. Alright, so let's start with the text to stitch. The goal of the text to stitch is for you to describe your task that you're trying to automate. So here we're writing generation of a blog post based on a chosen topic. Once you're happy with your text input, you can click generate and wait for the loading screen to be finished. Great. Once the loading screen is finished, you're met with your steps overview, which is going to be the structure of your prompt chain. At every step, you're going to get suggestions about every element that you need to include. If you're happy with them, you can click confirm, but if you want to optimize them, go further, add new steps, you can also do it. You can also add new steps if you'd like to do so, and you can also remove steps if you'd like. We work really hard for our suggestions to be on point and almost ready to go, and for such a basic task automation of generating a blog post, we can rely on the stitching automated generations. So after you read all the steps and that you're happy with everything, you can click confirm steps. There's going to be a new loading screen. And once this one is finished, you're going to be met with your question inputs. So now that the loading screen is done, you are met with your question inputs. The question inputs are going to be extremely important in your experience because they are going to be the one allowing reusability with your stitch. So basically every time that you're going to run a stitch, these questions are going to be asked. And you're going to need to provide detailed inputs to these questions. These questions are then incorporated in the prompts, which we're going to go over just in a second. But again, these suggested questions are going to be covering most of the scope of the task automation, but feel free to add more and to also change the different questions if you'd like to do so. Moving on to the prompt chain, as you can see again, Stitching generated a fully ready to go prompt chain, which covers the task of generating a blog post based on a chosen topic. Let's not focus too much on the prompts themselves, but let's focus on what you can include in them. As you can see, you can add input blocks, which is going to be the answer of each question that you've set up in the question inputs. Again, so that the information of this question and the answer to this question gets incorporated in the prompt every time that you use it. So feel free again to optimize the prompt, add more question inputs and add them in the prompts. Now you might be wondering, what is the output blocks? Basically, the logic of creating a prompt chain is that you're taking the output of a first step or a second step or any step and feeding it into a following step of the prompt chain. So here in the step 1, we're gathering all the relevant information about the chosen topic with the question input 1 and 3, which is the chosen topic of the blog post and the key points or main ideas that needs to be covered in the blog post. Then once this prompt gets an output, which is going to be the data gathered, then we include it into the second prompt as an output block number 1, which is the step number 1 output. This effectively creates an information chain between your prompts and allows you to build upon previous steps. So here the step 2 is going to create a detailed instruction to create the blog post, and the last step is going to go ahead and actually generate the final blog post. As you can see, it's referring to output 2, which is going to be the instruction, and output 1, which is going to be the data that we gathered about the chosen topic. For every step in stitching, you can rate the quality of the suggestions that we generated for you, just with these 2 thumbs. And if you're not happy with the result, you can also provide feedback to us in order for us to improve our models. So once you're happy with everything, that you've set up your prompt chain for your desired goal, then you can click continue. So then once you click continue, you're going to be able to test your stitch. You're going to need to input all the information that you've set up in the question inputs. Here I've taken the liberty to already pre-fill them to be quicker. The topic of the blog post is going to be healthy eating habits and their benefits. The target of the blog post is going to be young adults and parents. And then I wrote some key points that should be covered in the blog post, and I've copy-pasted a bunch of notes that I had about healthy eating. So really the goal with the inputs is to be as detailed as possible and to give the most information that you can, which is relevant, and to give the information that the LLM, the AI model, couldn't know before you gave it. Most of the things that the LLM can do is research and know about a lot of topics, but the key specific important points that you want to include in your outputs cannot be imagined by the AI. So this is where the inputs comes in clutch, is that you can incorporate this type of information to make your output really meaningful and really purpose-driven and really with your domain knowledge, so that you make sure that your outputs and the result of your stitch is actually meaningful and that you can actually rely on it. The most information you put in the inputs, the better the quality of your outputs are going to be. So once you've set up everything and that you're happy with the detail that you've gave for the inputs, you can click Run Stitch. And once the loading screen is finished, you get your outputs. So as you can see, the step one didn't only just gather the data that we wanted, it also built upon it and kind of created a very cool and informational context that's going to be passed on to the second steps. And then step two generated an outline for the blog post based on all the guidelines, information, and everything that we've gathered in step one, thanks to the fact that we prompt chained it. And finally, the step three generated the final blog post following the outline and incorporating the data that we've gathered to create a stunning and really good blog post. And last but not least, if you want, you can also change inputs. If you'd like to redo the run of your stitch, if you're not happy with the outputs that you got, maybe the inputs were not precise enough, detailed enough. So if you want, you can click change inputs and rewrite all the inputs that you wanted to include in the blog post to run your stitch again. So congratulations, you've built your first stitch and you've tested it. It would be really appreciated if every time that you build a stitch, you can give us some feedback about the suggestions that you got and everything about your experience by clicking on this 2-minute survey and answering the questions. We're looking forward for your feedback and we're really excited to continue on releasing new features.